Have you ever seen one of these SUVs before? You probably have. What we have in front of us is a new refresh on an old model. This here is a GLE400. As of 2015, Mercedes decided to change their nomenclature. They went from the old generation ML series, which was their mid-size SUVs, and then all of a sudden, to be consistent with the rest of the model lineups, they decided to adopt the GL, GLK, GLC, GLE, GLS, and you get the rest. What we have right here is a 2018 model year. We're going to talk about some of the overall enhancements of this vehicle and why this vehicle, in fact, is one of the most luxurious, comfortable rides. And the beauty is, it's still old school. With modern day technology and all of these SUVs with twin turbo V6s and turbocharged 4-cylinder engines with hybrid assist, this is still from the older generation when you could probably still work on these, and people love these for their base simplicity, and yet they have all of the luxury amendment. For example, you have elevated ride height adjustments on these vehicles, you have comfort, heated, cooled seats, and we'll talk about some of the features in this vehicle. I personally love all the enhancements of this 2018 GLE400. We're gonna do a quick walk down exterior, interior. We're gonna do the quality experience and take this bad boy for a ride. I'm gonna share some of the key issues that I've had with this vehicle, some of the things that I love and some of the things not so much. But let's take a quick look from the outside. This vehicle is pure Mercedes, as there's no surprise, Mercedes, and they have this fork style lights. That's a dead giveaway. We have these top grills here, which gives it a little bit of snarling nostril. I personally love that look. Here up front we have headlights that definitely look a lot more pronounced. Certainly this is the big step. Some of these details like the lights, as well as the very aggressive spoilers like this and these gaping holes, as well as some of the vents and all of the other accents, are what sets the newer generation, the GL series vehicles, apart from some of the older ML series. But definitely we have the typical big three-pointed star up front. I love that fork in the front. The grille is very pronounced, and honestly, the looks of this GLE400 is very strong and menacing from the front. And of course, up front we have a set of 20-inch skins right here mounted to a beautiful 5-star rims, and you'll notice cross-drilled ventilated discs for your hard stopping pleasure on the Autobahn. So if you decide to ever take this out, go full speed run, you know you've got the braking capacity. Here you get these running boards, but I'll show a little bit about that later because I think these are a little bit annoying, and actually I'll show you. I'm trying to get into this vehicle right here, and I'm sitting in, and as I roll off, then what I find is my legs bump against these step guards right here, making it very awkward. But let's go take a look up top and see what we've got up here. Here, let's climb up here. Oh yeah, right here. Now, what do we have? We have a huge, glorious panoramic sunroof up top here. Definitely love all that glass, lets lots of light into the cabin for all the happy people that might be inside there. You've got this beautiful brushed aluminum roof rack here, which makes it very easy to haul your roach infested mattress to the dumpster. We have this nice two-tone here. I love two-tone accents. It just gives a nice look. As you'll notice here, right here, we have that easy touch. That's lock, unlock right there. And naturally, we have a very much an ML inspired rear design. And this is the part that carries over the majority from the ML generation of SUVs by Mercedes. And you can see clearly that looks very much like the outgoing ML. You get this beautiful baseball cap brim right here. And of course, what would this be without a little good old-fashioned wiper ability? We get the 4MATIC. That means in Mercedes world, that's all-wheel drive in layman's terms. And there's only one drivetrain that comes in rear-wheel drive, but basically the majority of these vehicles will be outfitted with 4MATIC, being an SUV. And as we say, we are looking at the GLE400, which means this comes with a naturally aspirated 3-liter V6. We'll talk about that. Oh, what's that over there? What's hanging out over there? We've got somebody stuck out in the mud pit here. That's kind of an odd thing. I'm gonna have to check on that later. And before we go under the hood, I want to show you quickly key fob. Right here, lock. You'll notice lock right there, and then unlock. You'll see it right there. Now there's another trick. In case you weren't aware of how this actually works with the key fob, I'm going to give you the quick rundown. Key fob, I'm going to slide into my pocket right there. And then what we have, the ability to use just the handle, the proximity sensors intact. Now if we want to lock that, all I have to do is press this little button and it locks. How do we unlock it? Well, put your hand back here, now it's unlocked. And when you're doing that, you notice the mirrors do this. You'll see the mirrors actually go. And if we want to unlock the car by using this feature, there you go. I love that proximity test on these vehicles, and they work very, very well. So let's pop the hood right here. Now in certain markets you can get a turbo diesel 4, a turbo diesel 6-cylinder engine. In this particular you can get as well a GLE 550, but specifically we're at the GLE400, and we're gonna pop the hood right there and we're gonna expose this brand new engine. Well, it was new in 18, but here we are. We have a GLE400. This is a 3-liter V6 engine here, and it produces approximately 329 horsepower, has enough giddy up and go to make your life very exciting. And the beauty of this engine is it's actually made it up to the beautifully crafted and actually well-functioning 9-speed automatic transmission, which actually has vast levels of improvement on reliability, and as well, it just shifts so well. It just knows exactly where you need to be, when you need to be there, and it keeps the revs on the right spot. So it's a great drivetrain in this newest and revised GLE400. Let's close that up. All right, let's head inside to look at some of the quirky controls in this vehicle and some of the great widgets and doodads. Of course, over here on the door panel, we have this beautiful gloss finishing. That's a nice detail, and that's one thing Mercedes with the burl wood and all kinds of this gloss trim has always been a nice touch and element of elegance. And of course, we have 3 programmable seat controls. Here you have the full seat controls right there, lock, unlock, and typical window controls right there. You can lock them and keep all the little brats inside. Typical Mercedes, you have these big, beautiful aluminum puddles, gives you lots of grip on there. Of course, here we have heated and cooled seats, and let's just slide on in here and take a good look around. And working away from down here, you'll notice you have the light controls here as well. This car, actually, this SUV comes with paddle shifters, which is absolutely great. I love that. Any vehicle that gives that capability, you know, there's a slight sporting intention, and we'll explain how those different driving dynamics go in a bit, because there are certainly different controls here to alter those driving dynamics for you and personalize it to your taste. I love analog gauges. I mean, that's going away, and that's why this is one of those older style, older generation. You can feel some of the age in this vehicle. You know, with the older gauges here, lots of plastic on top, and while there's some nice touches, like some of this black trim across, the fact remains is a lot of the vehicle still feels very dated, still feels very aged, and some people hate that, and yet others love it. I personally don't mind it because it wears well. It does look a little bit cheap, it does look a little bit yesteryear, but what's great is you've got gauges that are readable, less likely of equipment to go wrong. When I live in a country like this where it gets down to minus 40 degrees C, there's no way digital displays ever work properly. So the old-fashioned analog gauges are perfect. Oh, look at this little guy. Hey, buddy. Hey, what's going on there, caray? Hey, yebempty sestro, what's this guy doing here? Uh-oh, he's coming. He don't look so shy over there. He's not looking too shy. Another cool quirk is this little push button start. You can either push it, or if your key fob is actually dead and the battery's gone in this thing, you can actually use this and pull this out. Pull that out. You can insert your key in there and give it a go. And when you're done, put it all back together. More great details. As you'll notice, the navigation isn't necessarily the cleanest navigation that you can get on the market. It does work, and this is giveaway that this is a newer transition into the newer generation of vehicles. As you see, it's got the full-size screen. It's not touchscreen, but it gives you all the capabilities, high-quality looks. Of course, you've got navigation. You can change your radio settings, go into vehicle, select that, and it pops out with all of your latest vehicle settings. And more elements that clearly date this vehicle other than the navigation, which is a little bit small. You know, a lot of these navigation screens are now 11, 12, 13 inches and beyond. This clearly looks like it's about an 8-inch display. Then, of course, you have your heater adjustments here. I love these vents. They're strategically located. Down here, we have a CD player, and that pretty much dates this vehicle. It's pretty obvious this is an older vehicle here. Of course, you have all your stereo controls here, as well as connect up your phone. You can do all that remotely. You've got a great selection of heated and cooled seats, which, let's face it, if you can keep Frank and the twins happy, that's all that matters. So you got heated and cooled, keep the seats comfortable for both me as well as the passenger seat right there, and it makes everybody very, very happy. The back seats as well have a very similar control, and so everybody in this vehicle enjoys the lap of luxury. Then as we go down, you'll notice dual climate controls here. You can alter your temperature. Maybe you like it a little cooler, maybe your wifey likes it a little warmer. Whatever it is, you have independence in your controls and your abilities and all of the rest of the widgets that you get with that. And even more importantly than all of those standard heating cooling controls, you actually have something here. Okay, ashtray. Nobody smokes anymore anyway. However, you get this great little button down here. What does that do? Well, look at this. I've got my beverage and I could put it down in this little beverage holder here. And what that does is you can either pick it to go warm if you've got a hot coffee, or that press of that little button can actually give you cold temperature. And you can actually cool your drink down. Maybe you have a Slurpee or a big gulp and you want to keep your drinks either cold or warm. That little control will do that and it will keep it nice, perfectly temperature controlled. Then as you cycle down here, your typical updated features. Of course, Mercedes has all these different driving modes, the traditional newer generation of thumb pad here, as well as the little mouse pad control, which allows you to just right on there. And of course, direct control to your driving modes, and we'll demonstrate that in a second. There's lots of storage up here. You don't just have storage down here like this. You can also throw it in places like this. Lots of room for your beverages. You can put 1, 2, 3 beverages in here. All your supplies, cleaning supplies, everything fits in here. Here you can pop the trunk right there, and you'll notice in the back, the trunk is opening up. And riding in a mid-size Mercedes-Benz, whether it's a GLE, E-Class, S-Class, GLS, any of the mid to upper SUVs or cars, always ensures that the people riding in the back don't feel like lonesome losers. Those clowns that get to park in the back and can't zip it. Speak when you're being spoken to. I'm just kidding. Anyway, we can get in here and people sitting in the back can actually enjoy a vast amount of room. I mean, look, even with all this glass up here, you actually have a lot of space up here. For a guy that's just shy of 6 feet, there's a lot of adequate headroom. You've got the holy crap handles here in case shit starts getting real. And naturally you get speakers, you get all kinds of great controls, more extension of this beautiful black trim. And as we close this, you can open your window right down here, is of course, unless the driver is controlling it down there and keeping me hands off. But we can open this up, and here we have a magazine rack. I love this. You can put all your junk in the trunk. Love this. Great opportunities. Vents. See, this is classic what I've experienced from older Mercedes-Benz. Look at these vents. Look at this junk. See, unfortunately, this is kind of remnants of yesteryear. You've got quality engineering, you've got technology, and as well you've got luxury, and yet you go put parts like this that come apart at the seams. But then of course you do get a set of heated controls or heated seats for both these partners, either your partner over there or this little guy over here. And unfortunately, if you're sitting right in this middle spot right here, you do feel like a little bit of the gimp, kind of sitting up in the middle. Now you can either put, you know, somebody that maybe doesn't necessarily get along with the group, maybe somebody they're on timeout. This is a great spot for them. I mean, honestly, that seat's comfortable. This one, not so much. It's a little harder. And you do feel like you're sitting a little more upright. So it's not quite the same level of comfort. Down here, you do get extra controls. You can control the heater output. But unfortunately, with this particular unit, you can't turn that off. But anyway, you also have this. And you have a little ashtray down here. Who smokes? 12-volt outlet for those people that like to charge their iPhones. And of course, more magazine racks. And you'll notice heating action right here. Another little quirky finishing detail other than these little parts is down here. Look, hypothetically, you got your foot. And let's say the driver decides to move his seat back and forth. You got your foot in that rail right there. And maybe it's summertime and you got your feet in there. That could be a world of hurt waiting to happen. Okay, let's take a look in the back. Well, here we have this beautiful sunshade, or basically security shade right there. Throw that back, it gives you lots of space. Down in here, pop that, and of course you get a full-size spare. You got the jacking equipment down underneath there. We just shut that off. That's pretty much junk. Extra materials, you've got great little cubbies down in here, as well as you got more cubbies and looks like parts that maybe aren't holding together all that well. You do get a 12-volt charging port right there, which is great. And naturally you can drop all these seats. You've got a two-sided here and a single there. But there's one thing about Mercedes, and they've often used chrome detail like this. I love this chrome. Well, let's crawl in here and let me tell you all about it. This back space here is literally cavernous. Now you do get this gorgeous rear light here. This allows light, so when you're in a driver's seat, you don't totally feel like you're in a cavern. It actually gets a amount of light from all kinds of angles and corners of this car or SUV. And so this does actually assist in providing enough light or access to viewing outside for the driver. But definitely looking around, You've got nice little quirky details like this. We can drop it down, hang your goodies there. And of course, right here as well, you can hook up and put your mesh there. Naturally, you got speakers, but I love all this chrome, and this isn't uncommon for Mercedes-Benz to use a lot of chrome detail on a lot of these parts. And it's pretty typical, and it's actually a very well thought out detail. I don't know why more manufacturers don't necessarily go with that kind of detail, especially considering when you're bringing your luggage and maybe you're an airport run, maybe you're doing a lot of hauling around, maybe your kid plays hockey and they're always throwing bags and throwing junk in there. That's just a recipe for a whole lot of scratches for most vehicles on here. You either have to touch that up with paint protection film so you don't scratch it up, or you buy a Mercedes because most of them have these nice little chrome updates on here. Of course, you get nice chrome detailing here as well, and you have a little tow hitch here, a receiver, so you can tow your favorite small little boat or trailer if you want to go to the cabin on the weekend or go to the lake. This vehicle can do it all. Massive room, go away on holidays for weeks on end. You've got enough capacity there because you'd no longer have the third row, which was an option. There was these crappy little drop down seats in the older ML series. As an upgrade, they would flip down sideways and they were hung up by little ropes and tuggies and pulleys, and they were garbage, and that is not an option here. Now you basically just have a cavernous back end. Kind of reminds me of an old school teacher I had in grade 4. She had a cavernous back end too. Before we go for a quick drive and share you my driving impressions of this beautiful 2018 Mercedes GLE400, let's do a quick walk down on the quality test and show you what kind of quality you can expect from this Mercedes GLE. Let's go. Okay, so we put her in gear. Let's take this rig for a roll, and I'll let you know kind of what my thoughts are. First off, getting into this, the vehicle feels more vault-like. I will actually openly admit, compared to our C300, which is a 2018, same year as this, it feels very flimsy. You slam the doors, there's a bit of a rattly feel to it. It doesn't feel very vault-like, like the conventional old school Mercedes. And that's why this particular vehicle, being the GLE400, is more or less just a freshened up ML generation of vehicle. Now, we know the ML is from quite many moons ago, and many people swear by them. We enjoyed ours, other than the fact that it tended to rust. But it had a great drivetrain. We had the V8. It was very easy to drive. It was bulky. It didn't handle well. I mean, the Porsche Cayennes will teach that thing a serious lesson. But it was a great driver. It just wallowed along reliably, quietly, as a Mercedes kind of should. And so this is more or less the same. And so driving behind the wheel or planting my fat schwanz behind the wheel of this vehicle is now starting to feel very familiar territory. It feels very much like the old ML that we owned, which is both good and bad. I mean, the bad side is, of course, it's old. It's starting to feel a little dated. It doesn't feel as refined or as fresh as some of the newer products you get behind the wheel of the newest, latest, and greatest generation of Mercedes vehicles, and you'll find it's quite a difference. They don't feel like they hold up as well, but they have a lot nicer tech. The interiors are dressier, and now, of course, with a lot of that big displays all over the front, you have all that digital technology on a lot of these new vehicles. This one here does tend to feel a lot old. Now, with that said, lumbering down the road, this vehicle does feel very sturdy. Now, I've got it right now in comfort mode. So comfort mode, as I change directions, the vehicle feels like it just sort of wallows along. It feels very sloppy and slow Joe. Now, they do openly admit this is comfort mode. For Mercedes-Benz, you're going to expect a vehicle that rides along very easily and gently and gingerly, and it's not going to be an exciting vehicle to drive in comfort mode. But that's the point. The point is, if you want a vehicle that just luffs along and just takes it easy and lulls you into this beautiful sort of relaxed state, This is the mode, and it feels like that. As I'm driving in this cabin, I am totally isolated, and I can't say that a lot of the modern day Benzes I've driven, especially the smaller vehicles, the CLAs, GLAs, C-Class, and even some of the newer E-Class vehicles don't feel quite as quiet and serene as this. Now I can hear a little bit of that road noise with the tires banging off the thumping off the cracks, but realistically, it's actually very, very serene. This vehicle is very calm, relaxed. You know, obviously, you have all the technology. I open the sunroof, one touch gets me the light inside the cabin, and then one more touch basically opens up the sunroof itself, and then I could actually enjoy a lot of the air. I can hear the birds, I can hear the road noise around, I hear the screaming. Oh, wait a minute, what was that? Why was that scream? Did you hear that scream? Yikes. Let's close this up. I want to be isolated from that. And with this vehicle, as soon as you close that sunroof, you feel totally isolated from all of the environmental noise and nonsense around you. As a matter of fact, while I was filming, and I don't know if you saw that, but there was a coyote that came up to me. I was sitting in the vehicle here, filming on the outskirts of town, and a coyote literally walked up about 8 feet away from the car. I didn't notice him, I didn't hear him, but this vehicle does give you the sense of isolation. You do feel like you're isolated from the events, the elements, the weather, the conditions, the noise. I'm sitting in a very busy intersection right now, and honestly, here, let's just turn that down a little bit. I have a little bit of that fan noise just off the heater. Now I don't hear anything. It is literally totally serene. So as I look around, I do feel this sense of lots of plastic, a little bit of a sense of cheapness. Now granted, the plastic isn't that really hard, shiny Tupperware style or tackle box stuff that you find in a lot of Kias and Hyundais. You know, it does feel a little nicer, particularly around when I touch the dashboard and I touch you know, the pads on the door cards here above the cards. It does feel very rubbery and soft, pliable. It does feel good. But looking around, I have all the controls at my disposal. Everything's here. I have this beautiful new display and this infotainment system, which is a nice upgrade, especially when you come out from an ML vehicle. You don't have any of that technology. And that's just that little gap check here, I guess, whatever you want to call it, that Mercedes put in place to actually give you the sense of transition, to take you to the new generation, but not fully engulfed. I mean, a little bit more of a non-technical drivetrain, but it's smooth, it's quiet, it's peaceful as a Mercedes should be. And so who needs a twin turbo 4-cylinder hybrid assist with a little extra supercharging? I mean, look at the likes of Volvo, what they're doing with a lot of their drivetrains, and we're not seeing that here. Mercedes is sticking to what's a little more conventional. Now, Mercedes has been a little, I guess I'll say, they've tried some things that haven't worked. They've tried that new C63S with that new turbo hybrid, you know, hot rod vehicle with over 600 ponies. Nobody wanted the C63 anymore because it has a 4-cylinder engine. And so as a result, they didn't sell. People want what they expect. What they want from a Mercedes is a quiet, serene, relaxed, cushy driving experience. This isn't going to be competition for the likes of a Porsche Cayenne or a Lamborghini Urus or an RS Q8 by Audi or any of those hot fire-breathing SUVs. This one's sort of stalled in the middle. This has sort of a technical feel to it, a sleek look, more sporty SUV. You know, it doesn't have that G-Class, the G-Wagon look to it, you know, where it's pure utilitarian. Rather, it just has this soft, relaxed ride with body style that looks a little sporty and edgier, but without being full-on utilitarian. This just seems to split the difference, and I like it. And so driving along, we are now in comfort mode, and what I'll do is I'll toggle that over to sport mode. Oh, and all of a sudden it downshifted. I feel an urgency in the throttle response, and you can actually hear it a little bit. Oh, yeah. You literally feel this sort of kind of edginess to it. You hear it, it downshifts, the suspension tightens up, because remember the suspension here, as you saw, we did the ride height actuation on this vehicle, and so this is fully customizable. As you hit sport mode, it tightens up the suspension, it downshifts, it adds a little urgency to the throttle response, it feels a little punchy all of a sudden, and while as I accelerated there, it sort of held the RPMs for a while. As you notice that, you know, if I rev up, I'm in fourth, I can downshift. Now I'm using the paddle shifters. So it tends to overrun a little bit, which is kind of expected. It's expecting you to continue accelerating, but it's driving well. And, you know, sport mode feels like it does a little better job of picking up the bumps and eating up the hard roads. You know, it's not so cushy, it's not so soft, but it's also not so wallowy. And I actually really like sport mode, and I feel like sport mode is probably the mode where most SUVs and most vehicles like this should fall by default. If anything, I would almost ask for maybe another edgier level. But right now we have sport mode on, we had comfort mode, which is just a little too soft and serene. We also have snow mode, which I can put that on. And snow mode, it's, oh yeah, see what it does there? All of a sudden I switch it over to the snow mode, and it expects you, the driver, to want a vehicle that's not edgy, that's not fire breathing. And it actually feels like it really softens up and dumbs down the throttle response, which it actually does. And now as I dip in, see, even to get going, it's very sluggish coming out of the hole. So as I set off in first gear from a red light, snow mode just doesn't even accelerate. It feels like it's very limited. I'm actually putting my foot halfway into the throttle and it's barely easing into it. So yeah, it looks like snow mode does what you expect. Very gentle, easy throttle changes. What about the brakes? Brakes don't feel all that different. Suspension setup feels like it's more set up based on the comfort mode, which is what you expect. A little more control, a little more edginess. As the suspension rolls a little bit, you're picking up the articulation of suspension, so you're getting more contact patch rather than being on an edgier, you know, it's allowing to roll with the undulations and some of the roughness in the road. And it definitely does a great job. So snow mode does what you really do expect, and that's kind of manage your throttle and everything. It eases it into it. Now, we also have a hill climb, which feels like, I think it just basically downshifts. And while I'm looking at the dashboard, it puts me into rising comfort mode off-road. So I go to off-road mode, it doing all of these things at the same time. It's quite cool. So you don't have to hit all these buttons. You just toggle it over to off-road. It rises the suspension and basically brings you up for an escalated height, so you can avoid some of the tree stumps and humps and dips and bumps that you're going to expect. And it actually automatically sets up the vehicle as well into comfort mode. So it softens it up, gives you a little more of that suspension articulation. Everything is a lot softer and easier and gentler with an added ride height. So that's clearly designed to get you through, you know, rougher terrain, more relaxed, and do that. So while we toggle, why don't we toggle this back down to sport mode? And we even have individual. I'm not going to bother with that. That's pretty much pointless. But at the end of the day, sport mode feels like the best street driving mode for this vehicle. I do find the transmission very sluggish and slow. It's lurchy, but I did mention in comfort mode only, because as soon as you toggle in the sport mode, you can activate the gear changes with the paddle shifters, and it's quick. Now, it's not ZF Auto quick like you're going to find in the Jag F-Type R. Those cars are tuned, sport tuned for quicker changes, more aggressive changes. But for a torque converter auto, this is nice. This is a nice SUV to actually get you around. And in sport mode, it handles the corners. See, like it takes me around the corners really nicely. And I kind of wallow around the corners. It doesn't lean very much in the corners at all. Actually, it's a little surprising. It's very compliant, it's quiet, but in the corners, there's enough stiffness there to sort of actually hold you there. And as we roll along, I'm gonna try this corner a little bit better speed. Yeah, and I mean, the only thing rolling are the tires rolling underneath the rims a little bit because they're a high profile, or basically a real soft sidewall, basically made more for off-roading. It's an SUV after all, it's not a Ferrari. So it does a great job of rolling the corners at reasonable speeds, but it keeps the vehicle very planted. I actually like this a lot. Now let's try that in dumb mode or comfort mode. Let's turn that down and see how it handles in the corners. As we compare, we're going through some quick 90s. Oh. Let's try that again. Let's take this into the corners and see what it'll do. And see if we can do a direct comparison between sport mode, which handles actually quite well in the corners, and we'll do this in comfort mode. Take the corner. Yeah, there's definitely, you can feel the scrubbing, and it feels like it's rolling a little bit on the road. It definitely doesn't handle as nicely in comfort mode. I mean, it's not rolling over and falling on its side, but it doesn't feel as confidence inspiring. So if you're gonna do some brisk driving, I would strongly advise, yeah, see even here, now you feel yourself kind of rolling in the seat a bit more. Whereas in sport mode, we toggle that back. We'll try that one more time. Yeah, it's peppy there in sport. I'm not even gonna lie, that 329 horsepower is alive and well. Let's just crank this corner. Ooh, it's got nice zing too. So this actually has pretty good corner to corner, point and squirt kind of effect here. It actually drives nicely coming out of the corners, and in sport mode, the power is on tap and it feels like it's there and ready to go. So, is it an old chassis? Yes. Is it sort of a dying breed? Yes. Is it a vehicle that should be replaced? No, not really. There's definitely more welcome to vehicles that bring this type of experience. A very wallowy driving experience. And if I can actually draw a direct comparison, the way this wallows around in comfort mode, let me just, for those of you that are familiar with Toyota products, you know, I drove one of those Toyota 4Runners, the latest and the greatest, with all the black trim on it, the Nightshade edition. I loved it, but it was very wallowy. And so the way it felt, you know, driving around, lumbering down the road, it feels very much the same here in comfort mode. So the comfort mode, if you want to draw that comparison, the comfort mode here in this GLE400 feels almost identical to what you're getting in the 4Runner with, of course, the standard default settings. It's very, very similar, and like I said, you've got all the modes that you need when you need it. You've got heated, cool seats. Meantime, I've been activating this cool seat because my backside's just roasting. It's sunny today, the weather's warm, and I just wanted to make sure that, you know, I'm not gonna jump out of the car all sweaty with my backside all sweltering. So I've got the cooled seats on, it's working very nice. The modes are great, the shifting is amazing. And this is one of those SUVs that is so easy to live with. I think the only downfall is that I can see with this modern day derivative of an M series or ML class is the fact that some of the poor quality plastics, cosmetics aren't necessarily there. I showed you in the back, there was some plastics on the vents that were already broken. We experienced the same thing with our old ML. It was the same problem, the same storyline. We had plastics, the vents that were breaking, same area. We had a cup holder back there, break, same area. And the plastics just seem a little substandard. And so that's the area that I think these Mercedes are a little flimsy. The other thing I would add is it is a little older technology. It is nicer to see some of that newer tech. And for those people that want all that new technology, the big wide screens and all of that, you're probably not gonna get it here. So this will disappoint you. And the drivetrains aren't necessarily spectacular, but it does everything you need. The only other downside I will make note of is simply this. It's a little bit expensive. This vehicle started about $66,000 Canadian base price with the base level of trim. You start speccing this up. It doesn't take very long to run the price up to $75,000, even $80,000 before even getting into a true AMG model. And that just basically leaves this vehicle almost in a place where it's abandoned, it's orphaned. There's too much new technology out there, too many new great models out there to ignore. While this is a great vehicle, I like everything it does. I feel like it's priced a little bit out of its league at this point. If you are thinking about buying one of these now, it's a 2018, so clearly it's a few years old. I don't really have a lot bad to say. It feels like a sturdy drivetrain. You have enough tech and comfort modes in here, enough literally to keep you happy. So really the only thing I'd say is it's a little bit old school. It feels a little bit antiquated, but that's not always bad. If you're a DIYer like I am, this might represent a good value. Buying on the used car market, it's likely suffered a serious depreciation, and this is going to be a great offering as a used vehicle. With all of that said, if you want to see something a little more modern, check out that. I recently reviewed the Jaguar F-Pace, the refresh, the reface version of that. I loved it. New tech, new lines, great looking vehicle. You're going to want to check that out as well. Hey, maybe you're looking for a Ferrari? Why not? Right there's another option. Hope to see each and every one of you in the next one. See you real soon. Bye-bye.